Samsung just unveiled a major EV battery breakthrough, which is a 600-mile range battery that charges in 9 minutes and has a guaranteed 20-year lifespan. This is roughly double or triple the stats of all the EVs on the market right now, and it's set for mass production, though the author of the article does want to point out that given the current high production cost, the initial adoption of these batteries will be confined to the super premium EV segment. So probably, Lucid, Rivian, Tesla, probably Tesla Plaid, that kind of stuff. But you can actually see the batteries here. It's a row of them. It's almost like having 100 or so gigantic AA batteries underneath your car. But let's talk about why these are so impressive. And one of the very first ones is that these are already done. They're already in cars. Samsung is building themselves up to mass produce these by 2027. There have been prototypes sent to all the major EV manufacturers for testing to see how they can be integrated with their vehicles. And they're not even lithium-ion batteries. They are actually solid-state batteries. And one thing I didn't point out is that a 600-mile charge is an insane amount of range. For example, to drive from Atlanta, Georgia to Miami, Florida in one go is 660 miles. So in that trip, you could almost make it on one charge. Maybe if you drove a little slower, maybe if the wind was at your back or something, you could totally do it, as wild as that is. And these batteries are lighter and safer because they are less prone to exploding. So these batteries are lighter, safer, more energy dense, which you can see right here. They have roughly double the energy density of lithium-ion batteries, and they charge faster and they survive more charging cycles. I will admit the 9-minute claim is on the charging the battery from, we'll say 20 to 80%, which is sort of the standard recommendation for EVs these days, because the first 20 and last 20 take way, way, way more time and electricity to get that energy density properly. But most people aren't charging from 0 to 100. That's a little bit of an uncommon practice. And they're not just in the theoretical phase. Samsung is gearing up to mass manufacture these bad boys within about 2 or 3 years. So I think that's very impressive, and it makes me feel a little bit hopeful for the future of electric vehicles. OpenAI's Sam Altman says that it's impossible to create ChatGPT without using copyrighted material, but unfortunately, a new study is saying about 57%, or the majority of the content on the internet, is AI generated now, and this is slowly killing quality search results and AI training materials. I actually saw this article a few days ago in a sort of different context, which is that AI models feeding on AI created data may face a death spiral, because when you create data with AI, as most of us know, it's sort of an approximate fitting. It's not the best. It usually kind of gets the job done. But then when you're using this non-human created approximate fitting to train AI on itself, it's very cyclical and the results get worse and worse and worse. And that's basically what this study was designed to indicate and what it does. It says the knowledge scope of AI tools is getting thinner as AI generated content floods the internet, limiting training material. Which is true. The internet is unfortunately just littered with AI content, absolute nonsense articles, not that different than the one I'm reading, often written by AI instead of human beings, passably so. I've read some and not noticed until about halfway in some of the words were a little funny. But the study suggests 57% of all internet content available is AI generated, which actually kind of leans into the dead internet theory. Copilot and ChatGPT can't train themselves, and if copyright law prevents AI models from using copyrighted content, the responses generated are only going to become more inaccurate over time. Because since you can't train AI with copyrighted content, some people have begun to try to train AI with other AI chatbots, and it just gives you absolutely nonsense data because, again, it is cyclical. And what's ironic about this is that AI might be its own undoing, just kind of like how humanity is sort of determined to destroy ourselves by polluting the planet. AI might be destroying itself by polluting its own knowledge pool, which I find kind of fascinating. I've got a supposedly very negative story about Amazon, which the company strongly denies. So let's jump into the details here. Amazon drivers were on the internet complaining that their ability to sing along with the radio is being stifled, and that the company had installed cameras and microphones in the car and were using AI to monitor the drivers to make sure that their lips weren't moving too much, because distracted delivery drivers cause accidents and drive more slowly, and they considered singing along with the radio to be a distraction. So, wow, this was initially reported, I believe it was on Reddit and a couple of smaller news websites. And to me, with my experience with Amazon and how they treat their workers, we'll scroll down to the bottom here, infamously forcing them to pee in bottles on their shift, racial bias in the driver reviews, micromanaging every single thing that happens at the factory in questionable conditions and making people work during deadly tornadoes. I said, yeah, this probably tracks. This sounds like exactly what Amazon would do with AI, is to crack down on its human workers that are toiling away in 100-degree heat. Well, Amazon strongly denies that. A Amazon PR spokesperson told Jallo Pink News, which I'm reporting on here, that this is completely inaccurate, and Amazon has never issued guidance or communications to delivery service partners that prohibits singing in the vehicle. But workers are telling a different story, and I don't really know who to believe here. The official source from Amazon is this doesn't exist, but man, I can't think of a less credible source. How rough that is. It's just kind of creepy, and it's a little, maybe if anything else, it's a little bit disturbing that one of our largest corporations has a workforce that is so oppressed that a dystopian article like this is instantly believed as real instead of the company's official statement. This was something that would be wild and crazy and laughed at 20 years ago, and now is a reality. They're like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. AI is telling me what to do all day. Yeah, I mean, that we have about 800 examples of that in the past, and I'm rambling a little bit. If you're an Amazon delivery driver, do you have any experience with this? Lab-grown stem cells could be a major breakthrough for several types of cancer treatment, and stem cells made in the lab may one day aid cancer treatment by reducing our reliance on donors for all sorts of things. But today we're going to be focusing on blood. What you're looking at here is a rendition of stem cells turning into blood cells and splitting. And this is really cool because human blood has been made from stem cells for the actual first time in a laboratory, which could significantly change how we treat certain types of cancer, like, say, leukemia, lymphoma, and things like that, because chemotherapy typically destroys the blood-forming cells in the marrow when you're undergoing those kinds of treatment. So what scientists managed to do is produce stem cells from the actual patient, not from another source. They harvest it from inside of you, which eliminates the supply issue and reduces the risk of rejection. And they do this by turning regular human blood or skin cells into pluripotent stem cells by temporarily turning off 4 genes, which causes the patient's cells to revert to an earlier stage of development, i.e. stem cells, where they can become any cell in the human body. And then in the second stage of this, they take those same stem cells and apply treatments to them to make them into blood vessels and blood cells. Once we've harvested all of that, it's ready for injection. Now, this has only been tested in mice. It's been tested in treating like lymphoma and leukemia in mice. They haven't done human testing or other animal testing yet. And even in mice, the scientists suggest the treatment was not consistent, and this will need to be addressed in clinical pretrial treatments with patients. It seems to work super well with some mice and completely rejuvenate their system and get them back to making blood cells. Others, not so impactful, and scientists don't know why, but we do have a thing that's working sometimes, and it's still very interesting, still a breakthrough, and still a first.